Okay, my friend wanted me to say that. Anyway, hi everybody, Show Andy here. Alright, so I'm gonna leave a timestamp in the description if you want to, like, skip to the part where I actually talk about my AU. I'm gonna explain a couple of things before I do that, but if you want to skip the explanations, just click on the timestamp. It'll be there. Okay, so first question on your mind upon clicking on this video is probably, what the hell is this camera angle? Why am I sitting on my bed? I mean, the reason I don't show my face should be obvious, but like, why am I sitting on my bed? Why am I not recording this on my computer or something? And the answer to that is, I am a huge fan of the director Max Landis. I haven't actually seen any of his video. I haven't seen any of his movies, but I'm a huge fan of just his personality and the way he describes things. Like, one of my favorite videos on the internet is the Death and Return of Superman pitch by Max Landis, where it's a 43-minute video where Max Landis, this scriptwriter guy, this screenwriter in Hollywood, he sits down in front of a camera, kind of like what I'm doing now, and with a little bit of editing, a couple other camera angles, but for the most part, it's a 43-minute video where he just sits down and talks to a camera about his idea for how he would have written the Death and Return of Superman comic, and I've watched that video at least 10 times, because he's just such a captivating, entertaining person to listen to, and I kind of want to replicate that with this. You also get to see my hand motions, so that's why I'm recording it like this. Secondly, a couple of you, I don't know, but maybe some of you might be wondering, like, oh, what's an AU? But basically an AU, it stands for Alternate Universe. It is when a person takes an existing universe, like Undertale or Harry Potter or Stranger Things or something. So they take an existing universe and they put their own spin on it. Maybe they introduce an original character. Maybe they put all the characters in a different setting. Maybe they swap around the characters. Like, if you've been in the Undertale fandom for any amount of time, you probably know about, Underswap, where a bunch of the characters are swapped around, or Underfell, where all the characters are edgy versions of themselves, or, a Harry Potter AU, where everything's the same, except everything takes place in a normal high school with no magic, It's just, like, little, maybe not little, but just changes made to the source material that tell a new story. So, AUs kind of have a bad rep because, especially in the Undertale community, because there are a lot of really stupid AUs. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like SpongeTale, where all the characters are SpongeBob characters, or like, I don't know, Underswap and Underfell are kind of stupid too. But there are tons of AUs in Undertale. There are tons of AUs among the Undertale community, and the term AU is kind of synonymous with cringe at this point, unfortunately. Which kind of sucks, because I think AUs are an extremely entertaining and interesting way for fans to engage with the source material. But for the longest time, I withheld on, like, thinking about or creating my own AU, because I just didn't have any ideas. Like, I thought that, like, oh, all the ideas are taken already. I thought that, and I also thought, like, why bother? I'm happy with Undertale as it is. I'm not going to make any changes to it. I don't see what changes I could make to it. But a couple of days ago, I was listening to, well, it was about a week ago, I was listening to a Megalovania remix called Asgore Lovania. And, it was just Asgore in the style of Megalovania with some, like, leitmotifs put in there. But it got me thinking, because all the people in the comment section were saying, like, oh, this is the theme that would play if Asgore were to fight you at the end of the genocide run instead of just dying like an idiot. But I was thinking, what if this is the theme of Asgore's, if Asgore became Chara, if there was an AU where Asgore swapped with Chara. So that got me thinking, okay, so Asgore swapped with Chara. What else can what other swaps can I do here? So I'm not exactly sure how I got to the process of choosing these swaps, because this is going to be a role swap AU. It's yet another role swap AU, that might actually be the name of the AU. It would be abbreviated. It'd be abbreviated as Yarsaw, which is kind of a cool name, I think. But the name of this AU hasn't been decided. But it's going to be yet another role swap AU. But stick around. It's not going to be, like, swap shift scramble tilt fell or whatever. There's one thing that distinguishes this swap AU from all the other swap AUs. So just hang in there. I'll get to the good stuff. I took a lot of inspiration for this AU from Story Shift, because I think Story Shift is the best swap AU besides maybe Inverted Fate. The reason why Story Shift is like much better than the more popular swap AU, which is Underswap, is that Underswap, it swaps around the characters, like, oh, Sans is now the, like the incompetent and really excitable Royal Guard member, whilst Papyrus is the laid-back Royal Guard member who fights you in the Judgment Hall, and, Toriel is now the queen of the Underground and sitting on the throne, and Asgore is hiding in the ruins. But the reason why Underswap isn't that interesting of an AU, in my opinion, is that the character personalities are changed to fit their roles. So you put Sans in this new role, in this new like position, right? But you don't actually you fundamentally change Sans's character. So you might as well not even call it Sans at that point. You might as well just call him Papyrus, but like shorter, basically. There's no intrigue, in my opinion, if you take the characters and swap them around, but you completely change their personalities, so it doesn't even matter that they're in a new role. For the most part, it's, from what I've seen, Underswap is basically a palette swap of Undertale. It doesn't tell a new story. There's new music, I guess. The music for Underswap's pretty good. But there's nothing really new brought to the table, and I think that's kind of lame. But Story Shift, on the other hand, it swaps around characters, like, Asriel is now a member of the Royal Guard, and Chara is the lazy member of the Royal Guard, right? Well, Asriel and Chara are the brothers who, or the siblings that, they follow you throughout Snowdin Forest and they, like, pull pranks on you and stuff. But it's interesting because you see a character like Chara in Sans's role, and their personality is the same as canon. Well, I guess that's a bad example because that's kind of delving into headcanon. But, like, a perfect example is, Sans is now the king of the Underground, and he's still that lazy, sort of laid back and kind of nihilistic person, but since he's now the king of the Underground, I don't think it's explained why he is yet, but since he's now the king of the Underground, he has to be a lot more active. He has to look out for his subjects more. And then, like, how will a character like Sans cope with being the king of the Underground? And, how will a character like Toriel, who's very protective and motherly and kind, cope with being the leader of the Royal Guard now? Because that's what she is in the Story Shift. Like, I think that's super interesting. You take these characters that you're familiar with, but you put them in different roles, and you see how they sort of what stays the same and what changes. I think that's the extremely interesting part of Story Shift. It's got great music too. So I was inspired by that. So I started thinking about the swaps, and the swaps that I came up with are, these are going to sound random, but stick around, trust me, it'll make sense. So the swaps I came up with are: Asriel takes Asgore's place. Asriel is the king of the Underground. Chara takes... I'm going to pronounce it Chara. Hope you don't mind. Chara takes Toriel's place as the outcast living in the ruins. Asgore and Gaster... I'm going to explain why that is the case. Asgore and Gaster, together I'm going to just call him Aster. Aster takes Chara's role as the spirit that provides narration in the Pacifist run, and the spirit that possesses Frisk in the Genocide run. Toriel takes the place of Asriel as the being that is reincarnated into a soulless, emotionless form and regains their true self at the end of the True Pacifist run. Moving on from those four, Alphys takes Papyrus's role as the incompetent Royal Guard member. Undyne takes Sans's role as the lazy Royal Guard member who fights you at the end of the Genocide run. Papyrus takes the place of Metaton as the star of the Underground, the most recognizable person in the Underground. Sans takes the place of Napstablook as the depressed monster who lives in the ruins. Well, who hangs out in the ruins. Let's see. Who else am I forgetting? Is that all of them? Might be all of them. No, Metaton takes the place of Undyne as the Royal Guard leader. And finally, Napstablook takes the place of Alphys as the Royal Scientist. So if you noticed, this is another thing that I took from Story Shift. The duos, they're like pairs of characters in Undertale. Sans and Papyrus, they're brothers. Metaton and Napstablook, they're cousins. Asgore and Toriel, they're married. I kept Undyne and Alphys, they're dating. I kept those pairs together and I just put them into other pairs. Like Sans and Papyrus are now in Mettaton and Absolute place. Because I don't really like it when AUs, like, it makes more sense that way because now the characters can still have, dynamics and bonds together. Like, how the hell are you supposed to write an interesting relationship between Muffet as Undyne and, like, freaking Temmie as Papyrus? I don't like AUs that have sort of random swaps like that. I also don't like AUs that I also don't like swap AUs that swap sort of like, I don't want to say like unimportant characters, but non-main characters. Story Shift only swaps around those characters that I named, those 10 important characters, and I think that's the way to go. I also don't like it when AUs introduce new characters, but I'll get to that. So if you need a overview, Asriel is Asgore, Asgore is... shit. Asriel is Asgore, Asgore is Chara, Chara is Toriel, Toriel is Chara, Alphys is Papyrus. I need to get this straight. Alphys is Papyrus, Papyrus is Mettaton, Mettaton is Undyne, Undyne is Sans, Sans is Napstablook, Napstablook is Alphys. That's what you need. That's the way to keep things straight. If you need a reminder throughout this video, I'll put a link to the playlist I've made, which is music for this AU. It's a good reminder, because, like, I just looked around other AUs and found, like, oh, this is a nice theme for if Chara was Toriel and all that. So, those are the swaps. But the one thing that I think differentiates this swap AU from other swap AUs, and the thing that I put the most thought into, is that with AUs like Underswap and Story Shift, the one thing that's not explained in the setting is why are these characters swapped. In Story Shift, there at least not yet, there hasn't been an explanation for why is Sans the king of the underground. Why is Papyrus living in the ruins? Why did all this stuff change? Like, Inverted Fate is the closest swap AU to give an explanation for all the switches, but the only explanation they give is that Flowey reset too much and it just sort of like tore reality apart, which it's a fine explanation, but I wanted to do something a bit different. So the thing that makes my AU interesting, I think, is that all of these swaps, every single character has swapped roles. They're in a different position than they were in the canon game, and all of these swaps were caused by one thing, and that one thing is Asriel getting cold feet. Like, not literally. Asriel chickening out. That caused everything. So basically what happened, this is the backstory of the AU. So everything in this AU's history played out exactly like canon Undertale, until Chara explained their plan to Asriel to break the barrier by, committing double suicide, essentially. So, unlike canon Undertale, Asriel gets cold feet. He decides he's not going to do this. He doesn't have the guts to do it. He doesn't want to die. Why does this change? I don't know. There's no explanation for that. I guess it's an alternate timeline where this just happened Asriel just happened to chicken out at the time. So, Asriel chickens out. He runs crying to Toriel and Asgore one day and basically fesses up everything. Like, oh, Chara and I were going to kill ourselves to set the monsters free. And the thing is, Asriel and Chara, they both expected their parents, react with outrage or react with anger. Like, what is your problem? Are you stupid? What are you thinking? But what actually happens is Toriel and Asgore, they react with horror. They react with shame. They think to themselves, holy crap, our children were willing to kill themselves to set the people free, and we're the rulers of the underground, and we're not doing anything about this. This is our responsibility. So they decide, no more playing around. They're going to be the ones who cross the barrier and take the human souls. So that still leaves the question, how are they going to cross the barrier? They don't want to kill Chara. They don't want to kill their own child. So they enlist the help of Gaster. Good old Gaster. That little scamp. They get the help of Gaster, and Gaster gets to work. He creates his determination extraction machine, and Chara is willing to play along with this. I have to say they, sorry. So Chara is willing to play along with this. They are very, very, very pissed at Asriel that Asriel chickened out, but to Chara's surprise, Toriel and Asgore are willing to go along with this. So Chara's like, okay, anything that will result in the barrier breaking, I'm okay with it. So they subject themselves to Gaster's like experiments and tests and everything, and these experiments and tests are probably going to be what make up the tapes in the True Lab if I, keep that constant. Something I want to do with this AU is I don't want to feel like burdened and like tethered to the canon story. Like something I like story shift a lot and it tells an entirely new story, but it still follows the same patterns. Like it still follows the you go through the ruins. The character who takes Toriel's place is very kind to you, but then you must fight them and prove that you're ready to survive. You leave the ruins and you go into Snowdin Town and you fight the Papyrus character and like you date them afterwards and everything. I don't want to feel like I'm forced to follow that same formula. So anyway, so Gaster and Chara are having tests to like see if they can extract Chara's like soul power without actually killing them. So they're doing all these tests, and Gaster thinks he's made a breakthrough, and so they're making plans for Asgore and Toriel to both together. They will cross the barrier, they will kill 7 humans, shatter the barrier, and monsters will go free. So, come the big day, when Gaster is gonna power on the machine and set all the monsters free, everything goes completely wrong. And it's all because of one person, Asriel. Asriel rushes into the room because he's been kind of left in the dark about all this. Chara's not explaining what's going on, and Asgore and Toriel are like, you've done enough. You told us we don't need to involve you in this anymore. We need to keep you like innocent and safe. So Asriel, from the snippets he's heard, he thinks that when that machine turns on, Chara will die, and so Gaster's about to flick on the machine. Asriel rushes into the room like, no, don't kill them, no, and they end up causing some sort of distraction or messing up the machine. And I haven't really figured out the exact details of this, but somehow Asgore and Gaster, they sort of like fuse together. I'm not, maybe amalgamate style, maybe not. Maybe they just sort of, they both become one being or something. And something about the determination overload or something about the machine, like something, the machine going wrong scatters them throughout space and time, just like Gaster did in canon Undertale. They are lost in the code. They have been erased from history. No one remembers that they even existed. Asgore and Gaster. So that leaves Toriel all by herself. And I think the plan was to divide the soul power in half between Asgore and Toriel, and they would cross the barrier together. But now Toriel only has like half of Chara's soul power or something. Again, I haven't 100% worked this out. This is just me trying to get my thoughts out and, like to an audience. But so Toriel is left with half of Chara's soul power. And she's like, it's too late to turn back now. So she crosses the barrier. With the power of half a human soul, she kills 6 humans. She collects 6 human souls, but then she is struck down because she's not at full power right now. She doesn't have the full power of a human soul. She only has a half. So the humans overpower and they kill her. So they overpower her. They incapacitate her. She stumbles to the barrier. 6 human souls in tow. Gives them to Asriel, and then she dies, and Chara's the soul power dissipates. So, Asriel is left the last living dreamer, and they become the king by default. Asriel becomes promoted from prince to king by default. Chara is blamed for everything that has happened because monsters, they didn't really trust Chara anyway because they're a human, and all they know is that something went wrong with the soul power. Well, that must be Chara's fault. They don't know that Asriel is the one who barged into the room. And Asriel's not... Asriel, they don't exactly say that Chara is the one who did it, but when the monsters started accusing Chara, Asriel didn't step up to defend Chara, and that kind of weighs on Asriel's consciousness a lot. But, so, Chara is demonized for what happened on that fateful day. Oh yeah, and Asriel barging into the room would probably be like the big twist that's revealed in the tapes. But Chara is demonized, and they have to escape to the ruins and lock themselves in to avoid getting murdered by the monsters, essentially. And also, so there's 6 human souls gathered by Toriel, just sitting around in the underground, and Asriel keeps them in the jars or whatever. if the monsters can kill Chara and take Chara's soul, they all have 7 souls and they can break the barrier. So there are daily raids being conducted on the ruins. People are trying to bust down that door, trying to get the Chara, trying to kill them so they can all get free. And also, so that's those 4 swaps explained. Toriel, I'm not exactly sure how she, comes back to life after dying. I don't think she'll be reincarnated into a flower. I think that's a bit too derivative. I'll figure something out, but either way, eventually she comes back as this sort of soulless husk that cannot feel emotions. And Asgore and Gaster, somehow they're able to hitch a ride with Frisk, and Asgore provides narration, and Gaster takes over in the Genocide run. So that's those 4 swaps. Some more background information. After Toriel emerged from Mount Ebott and killed 6 humans, the humans were like, okay, no one is ever going next to that mountain again. In canon Undertale, Asriel emerged from it and just placed Char down on the flowers and then went back. So the humans didn't really have reason to seal off the mountain completely. This time they're like, no, any entrances into and out of the mountain, seal them off. No one is ever going in there. No one's ever coming out. So Frisk is the first human to fall into the underground in who knows how long. I'm going to say 80 years or something. So lots of time has passed by the time Frisk has arrived. And so yeah, that's the backstory there. That's the backdrop. That's the exposition of the AU. So I think I can get into the character swaps and the information on each character now. So I already talked about Asgore and Gaster. They fuse into this being called Aster because, Aster is the font that Sans' Z's are in. Little known fact. So Aster, I haven't really worked out the details, but they're lost to the code. No one remembers that they exist. Everyone just thinks that Asriel's dad was this, nameless casualty in the human-monster war, and Toriel had ruled the entire underground by herself for the entire time, because, no one remembers that Asgore exists. No one remembers that Gaster exists either. So, Asgore and Gaster, they fuse into this being, and they hitch a ride with Frisk when they fall down. How that happens, I don't know, but it's never explained how Chara hitches a ride with Frisk in canon Undertale, so I don't really need to explain that. So, I like the theory that Chara is the one providing, narration and flavor text and everything. So if that's the case with Aster, then my friend gave me this really funny idea where in order to spare a monster, you have to learn its true name, because Asgore is the one relaying all this information to you, and he just calls all the monsters really stupid names. He calls Frogget Shy Frog. Aaron is Muscular Horse. So you need to figure out what the monsters are called before you can spare them, and there's probably some really interesting lines I could put with Asgore as the narrator, but I haven't really thought up too much about that. And Gaster, in the Genocide run, they start kind of corrupting Frisk, and the narration kind of gets turned into wingdings and all corrupted and stuff. And I think in the Genocide run, it'd be really cool if Frisk grew horns and got red eyes, because Asgore is kind of based off the devil. I think that'd be really interesting. I don't think there's much else to say about that. Again, this is in the very early stages of the AU. I'll figure out more about Aster as time goes on. So Toriel I think is a very interesting character in this AU, because Flowey dealt with his emotionless by... Flowey dealt with that void of emotionlessness inside of him by experimenting and doing everything possible in the world, and then including killing people, right? Toriel, she copes with that sort of emptiness inside of her a bit differently. She's a mother at heart, so the way she has been dealing with that emptiness inside of her is she'll randomly latch on to some random monster, who knows, let's say Vulcan or something, and she will treat that monster as her child obsessively. She will protect that monster to the ends of the earth, and she will abuse the fuck out of her reset powers to do so. Anything remotely bad happens to that monster that she currently views as her child, she will reset. The Vulcan tripped one day, reset. Vulcan didn't enjoy the pie the Toriel break, reset. Vulcan started crying when she abducted Vulcan from its home and started, smothering it, reset. So Toriel has, by the time Frisk has fallen to the underground, Toriel has done this for literally every monster in the underground. Every single monster in the underground has been Toriel's child at some point. And she just she smothers them, she keeps them safe, she keeps them safe, I'll say. Like, she tries to deal with that by just, like, latching onto someone and protecting them until she loses interest and moves on to the next. So she's reset way more than Asriel has, and in canon Undertale. So that's going to have some effects on the setting. I'll explain that when we get there. But I think the best example of Toriel's character is that when she kills Asriel at the end of a neutral run and takes the 6 human souls and goes like Omega, she doesn't use that power to kill Frisk. She doesn't use that power to torture Frisk. She uses that power to keep Frisk in this limbo of nothing for eternity with her, because if there's nothing in existence, nothing can harm Frisk. Frisk is safe forever. And that's sort of like her twisted mindset. She'll do anything to keep her current child safe, essentially. And I also found it very interesting, the idea that when Frisk dies in this AU, it's not their determination that's bringing them back, it's Toriel's. Somehow Toriel's determination is greater than Frisk's. And that probably has to do with, like, the fact that she's... it probably will have to relate to the way she's reincarnated. I'm not sure how she's going to get reincarnated yet. But yeah, I think she's going to be a very disturbing character, I think. Let's see. I'll go more into detail about exactly how the story will play out as this video goes on. So then, let's talk about Chara. Chara, by the time Frisk falls into the underground, Chara is like an 80-year-old man or woman. They're old, they're frail, they're on the verge of dying of old age. And they've hidden out in the ruins for that entire time. The monsters have not managed to break down the door in 80 years. And the thing is, Chara, back when they were a kid, they were willing to die. They were willing to kill themselves to let the monsters break the barrier and go free. Not anymore. Seeing Toriel, who was basically their mother, seeing Toriel murdered in front of Chara's eyes, seeing that made Chara realize, like, oh my god, if the barrier breaks, all the monsters will die. I can't let that happen. So they're kind of hiding out in the ruins and preventing any of the monsters from killing them out of concern for the monsters, because they know that if their soul ever exits the ruins, then, well, they firmly believe that the humans will just declare war again and kill the monsters. So they're hiding out in the ruins for that reason. And they're also hiding out just because, they're kind of mad that they got blamed for all this. So, it's a mixture of those two things. So by the time Frisk falls into the underground, it's been 80 years, but it's been a very uneventful 80 years. So nothing has happened to convince Chara that humans aren't scumbags who are all evil. So Frisk falls into the underground. Chara comes over because, they're kind of taking care of the ruins. I feel like the ruins would be a lot more decrepit than in the normal Undertale, because I don't think Chara would be very interested in, like, keeping up the puzzles and stuff. Also, the ruins would be completely empty of all monsters because Chara probably drove them all out or killed them or something. But Frisk falls into the underground, Chara finds them. Chara's immediate reaction, kill them. 1, because humans are fucking evil and need to be eradicated. 2, because if Frisk exits the underground, if Frisk exits the ruins and their soul is taken by the monsters, barrier's broken, they're all gonna die. So Chara tries to kill Frisk immediately, but then, ta-da, Toriel comes up and saves you. And so it's kind of going to be the opposite of how Toriel saved you from Flowey in the canon Undertale. So it'd be like the Flowey figure saves you from the Toriel figure. So you go through so Frisk goes through the ruins, and Chara and Toriel are kind of both trying to get to you and trying to, like, Chara's trying to kill you and Toriel's protecting you. So, the reader's going to think, like, oh, Toriel's on my side. Toriel's a good person. So eventually, Frisk's walking through the ruins, and they find Sans. Now, Sans, what's changed with Sans is that, as I said, Toriel reset way more than regular Flowey. And that completely broke Sans. Sans in canon Undertale has given up hope of anything ever changing because of all the resets, but at least he still pretends that everything's alright. At least he still, puts an effort into, making Papyrus happy and, doing his job. Nope. Here, all the resets, reset every single minute, pretty much, for 80 plus years. That Sans spirit is broken. He teleported to the ruins where no one could find him, and he just sleeps all day. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care about anything anymore. He's resigned himself to that fate, because he knows that why even try? Nothing's going to matter in the end, right? And so he and Chara kind of coexist in this very uneasy truce because, you know, the first time they saw each other, Sans' reaction was like, oh, if I kill this guy, then the monsters will go free. Maybe I can at least do that, right? And Chara's reaction is like, oh shit, a monster that's here to kill me. They stared at each other, they kind of just backed off and went their separate ways. Because they both kind of had this instinctual gut reaction that if either of us are going to fight, if either of us start something with each other, we're going to have a bad time. And that is not a desirable outcome. Because, you know, they both, you know, Chara and Sans, they both kind of have a vague awareness of timelines, I believe. So they kind of coexist, and eventually you find Sans napping in the ruins. And when you battle them, and they still have immense power, they still have Gaster Blashes, they still have Karmic Retribution, they can still dodge, but they don't do any of that in the fight, because, you know, what's the point? I don't care. Like, if this kid kills me, I don't care. So you can choose to spare or kill Sans. And if you kill Sans, Chara will be watching, and they'll be like, I fucking knew it, humans are evil, none of them can be trusted. So at the end of the ruins, Chara will take you on, and it will be impossible to spare Chara right now. Because, you know, they're mad at you, they're not going to accept your mercy. So you have to kill Chara. And the only reason Frisk is able to kill Chara is because Chara is old and frail. They're on death's door. All it takes is a couple stabs from like a knife or whatever to kill them. So as Chara's dying, they're freaking out because they know they're begging Frisk, don't take my soul out of the ruins or else all the monsters will die. Luckily, Toriel shows up and shatters that soul for you. Problem solved. She can't have her precious children playing outside, right? Then what if one of them gets hurt? So she's trying to protect her children there. And so she shatters the soul, and she parts with the player by saying some really creepy line like, I'll keep you safe forever, my child. So that's like the first seed of doubt that Toriel is not like what she seems. And then she disappears and lets you exit the ruins because she wants you to meet all of her other children, right? If anything were to happen, she'll just reset. You're fine, don't worry. Meanwhile, if you spare Sans, Chara will start to realize, like, wow, that kid could have killed that monster, but he didn't. What's going on here? So you meet Chara at the end of the ruins, and, you know, they're kind of like, maybe I'm mistaken, maybe not all humans are evil, but I need you to prove to me that, like, I need you to prove to me that you're not like a softie. You're not just gonna let a monster kill you and then have them take their soul and have the barrier be broken and everyone die. So they take you on, but this time they can be spared because they're not out for your blood. They're just trying to they're trying to prove to get you to prove to them that you're not going to just get yourself killed. And I guess they're also trying to protect the monsters from, you know, getting your soul and then dying. So if you can spare them, I guess you could just do the same thing that you did with Toriel and just spam the spare button. I think Chara will let you go. They're going to be like, I hope to God that you know what you're doing. I don't think Toriel will kill them. I don't really see a reason for them to. I don't really see a reason for her to. So you leave the ruins. I bet Chara comes back at the end of the True Pacifist run and does some stuff. I haven't really thought out the True Pacifist ending very much, but so those are the situations in those characters. Chara is public enemy number 1, and they're trying to protect the monsters. Toriel is this emotionless vacuum, I guess, who just obsessively latches onto people and takes care of them and protects them. Asgore and Gaster, they're lost in the code and all that. Sans is depressed and doesn't care. So that's those characters. Moving on, you exit the ruins, and you are immediately, the moment you step foot out of the ruins, you are accosted by Alphys. Alphys sets a trap, you trigger the trap, and then there's all this sci-fi high-tech gadgetry starts activating, and then all of it blows up in Alphys' face. And enter Undyne. Undyne is the lazy Royal Guard member, and she's about to take you in, she's about to kill you or whatever, and then more Royal Guards come up. There are tons of Royal Guards in this area, and also Snowdin's probably really futuristic looking now, because Alphys has set up shop in Snowdin. So a bunch of Royal Guards come in, and they're like, Undyne, you're a lowly Royal Guard member. Your rank is really bad. Captain Metaton's orders. We're here to take this human in. We're here to escort them to the king and all that. So, why is Alphys stationed outside the door? Why is Undyne a lowly member? Why is Metaton the captain of the Royal Guard? It's all because Asriel is a bad leader, and it's not his fault. He's like a little kid. It's mentioned in Undertale that if a boss monster's parents die, they won't age. So Azrael is literally a little kid who has been leading the underground for 80 years. He doesn't know what he's doing. How is he supposed to know what he's doing? So he doesn't exactly make the best decisions, and one of the worst decisions he ever made was, just like in canon Undertale, Alphys is an aspiring scientist she gave her ghost friend, I'll just call them Hapstablook, she gave her ghost friend Hapstablook a robotic body. And she did that partly as, like, we're friends, I want to give this to you, and also partly because she wanted to be promoted to the Royal Scientist. She wanted to impress Azrael and have him go like, oh, this woman's really smart, I'll make her the Royal Scientist. But that plan 100% backfired. Azrael took one look at Mettaton, and his brain went like this. Mettaton? This robot was made to kill humans. The Royal Guard was created to kill humans. Mettaton should lead the Royal Guard. Right? Makes sense, right? Thing is, Mettaton is an absolutely terrible leader. And they take their position as Royal Guard, and they sensationalize it, and they commercialize it. They make a product out of the Royal Guard. They sell human killer t-shirts. They sell foam Royal Guard swords. They sell Royal Guard positions to people. You pay money and you could be part of the Royal Guard. They make it this huge sensation across the underground. The underground's culture has changed dramatically because Mettaton is such a presence in the underground, and they just start, going on like talk shows and broadcasting everywhere that human killing is the best thing a monster can do. Human killing is what makes the underground. And they throughout the course of these 80 years, Mettaton has basically, militarized the entire underground. They've converted the underground into this sort of like anti-human civilization. Like, in canon Undertale, a lot of the monsters don't even know what a human looks like. It's been that long since a human fell down. And barely any of the monsters actually want to kill you. They just, they're just saying hello in monster language or whatever. In this AU, the monsters are out to kill you. Not because they're like, they hate you, or not because they're like malicious. It's just because it's sort of like, it's almost like hunting in our culture. It's like, it's become such an ingrained thing that human killing is just like, a cool thing to do. And just like, like people will have conversations on the street like, oh, did you see that episode of, Mettaton where, did you see that Papyrus, did you see that episode of Papyrus's talk show where Mettaton was discussing, like, the best weapons to kill humans with? Man, I think I want to use, a Gaster Blaster. That would be a good idea. Yeah. Like, human killing is just this, it's normal. Like, the concept of killing a human and setting underground free, breaking the barrier, it's normal. Like, and so even the friendliest monsters are out to kill you, not because they want, to spill your blood and, like, murder you. It's just because Mettaton, his fervor and his passion for killing humans basically has spread throughout the underground. So that's not very good. Also, Mettaton's a really bad Royal Guard leader because he'll just basically accept anyone if they pay. He accepts Monster Kid into the Royal Guard, but they don't even have any arms. So they just kind of kick people, I guess. So that was a bad thing that happened with Mettaton becoming the leader of the Royal Guard. Another bad thing that happened as a result of that, Mettaton is very stubborn, and he refused to become the head of the Royal Guard unless Azrael accepted one condition, and one condition only. And that condition was to give his beloved cousin Hapstablook the attention and respect he deserves. Promote him to Royal Scientist so he can work with me. Azrael's a bad leader. He says yes. Hapstablook, this ghost who spends his days feeling like garbage and listening to music, he is now the Royal Scientist. And Alphys, the woman who was qualified for that position, not the Royal Scientist. She is demoted to a lowly Royal. She is blessed with the position. She is given the privilege of being a lowly Royal Guard member that no one cares about. And she resents Mettaton a lot because, like, I made you that body. You should be thankful. And, Mettaton's just like, I don't know, who are you again? But Alphys is very resentful of that, and that's the reason why she stationed herself outside of the ruins door. She wants to be the first person to capture a human. She wants to prove her worth to Azrael, set the monsters free, and get the attention she feels she deserves. And with Hapstablook, Hapstablook is the Royal Scientist. They spend their day mostly hiding out in the True Lab, which is, they kind of converted the True Lab into an auditorium. So they spend their days in the True Lab, just making music and trying to hide the fact that they're a fraud. But they do have one idea. They have one good idea that they think might set the monsters free forever. They're a musician. Napstablook is a musician. He knows a lot about sound. He knows that if you play a sound at the right frequency, it can shatter a wine glass. So why not the barrier? So he sets to work. He goes to the auditorium and starts testing out different sound frequencies, trying to see if there's any frequency, any magical frequency that can shatter the barrier and set everyone free without the use of human souls. So he tells Azrael about this idea, and Azrael sends him a bunch of assistants or whatever. And Napstablook, this is something I haven't really figured out yet. It's not 100% set in stone. I might change it. But Napstablook does find a magical frequency, but the frequency he finds is the frequency that shatters monster souls. So he accidentally shatters the souls of all the people in the auditorium. All the assistants are basically converted into flowies, soulless husks that can't feel emotion. And I'm not sure if this relates at all to Toriel coming back to life. Probably not. But I might change this. I don't know how I feel about it, but yeah, Napstablook. That's Napstablook's equivalent to the Amalgamates, his crippling failure as a royal scientist. So he just locks up the True Lab, never touches it again. He spends his days feeling like a failure and just telling Azure like, "Oh, it's going well. Don't worry about it." So that's Napstablook. He's stuck in a position as the royal scientist he doesn't belong in. His one good idea failed. Although I do want to use that. I want to bring that frequency back, like in the True Pacifist one. I want Napstablook to use that frequency on Toriel and like as part of the final boss battle. I think that'd be really sick. But anyway, so Napstablook is this person way above their head. They don't know what they're doing, and they're too shy to ask Mettaton to demote them. So that's a bit of a shame. Undyne now. Undyne is much more fit to be the Royal Guard leader, obviously. As we saw in canon Undertale, the Royal Guard flourishes under Undyne's leadership. The thing is, Asgore never existed, basically. Asgore was not around for these 80 years. And Undyne, without a strong father figure to sort of provide mentorship and guidance, without Asgore to provide her training and make her feel motivated to become the Royal Guard leader, her personality, she became a lot more laid back of a person. She wasn't as, fiery and passionate as she used to be, She didn't have those aspirations to become the Royal Guard leader. So when Mettaton got promoted, she didn't really care. She was just happy to, get a job working with Alphys, because they're already dating by the time Frisk falls in the underground. Undyne's more laid back personality allowed her to tell Alphys about her feelings without much fuss. She says like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I like you. Make of it what you will." So, Undyne, she doesn't really care about capturing a human, and the reason for that is that she's onto something. She knows something is wrong. She knows something is going on in the underground. She knows that someone is resetting. And how does she know this? How does she come to that conclusion? Anime. Instead of watching, super shonen anime like, Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and freaking, I don't know, like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and all those, like, fiery anime, like fighting anime, I'm gonna go Super Saiyan and all that. She doesn't watch, she's not the kind of person anymore. She's not into that very much. So instead, her preference in anime is, like, very mind-screwy, weird ones, like Evangelion, Akira, Steins Gate, and she's really into the time travel anime. She watches anime like Steins Gate. She watches anime like, I don't know, some other time travel anime. She watches those kinds of things. And she starts to notice the stuff happening, she's starting to notice weird stuff happening